Do what you want because a pirate is free. You are a pirate.
Oh boy. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the long-awaited video. The results of the competition we ran last month to, number one, submit some cool art, talk about Guild Wars 2, and number two, to design a pirate. This has completely blown me away. I've spent an ungodly amount of time this month. We're going to have to change the way the competition works slightly so that I'm not spending all my time doing admin-y things. But we had hundreds of submissions specifically to the pirate competition and a whole ton of great art as well. Want to talk you guys through that, show off the winners. So if you've been out of the loop, ArenaNet started giving gems to content creators to give away to you guys however we see fit. Now, I thought it'd be really cool to run some competitions that makes us think about the game, do a bit of discussion, and then have some awesome stuff to show off at the end of the month. So today, we're going to be looking at a variety of the submissions and announcing next month's competitions as well, what you'll be able to do to earn even more gems, where we have 4 different giveaways running. Thanks to Matt Visual, who actually gave us some extra gems as well for that one. So yesterday, if you guys saw, I did a video on ReShade, and in fact one of the competitions for next month is already running. The top link in the description will lead you to it. You can win 400 gems from me just by making a really decent cool ReShade preset and submitting it to that Reddit thread. What's going to be cool about that is not only will one of you have a chance to win 400 gems, and maybe I'll be using that in the videos going forwards, but also we'll have a nice database start rolling of various ReShades presets, just like we have currently with Sweet Effects, except, you know, for this more powerful tool. So that's the first of the competitions. The second competition I'll mention now before we move into the results of last month's, because it's a very basic one. It's kind of a selfish one and not a very interesting one either, so let's do this now. One of these packets of gems, 400 gems, is going to be given away to any of you. You don't have to be creative. You don't have to be particularly smart about the game. You don't really need anything. All you have to do is support the videos. So this competition is basically every single video that goes up between you witnessing this one and next month's competition video. I'm going to be picking one of those videos at random, and then at random I'm going to look at either likes or favorites on that video, and then I'm going to pick one random person who either liked or favorited that video, and they win the gems. So a lot of people did mention this idea. They wanted like the everyman competition, away turn gems even if you weren't good at anything. That's your chance for that. So if, for example, you watched the whole month and you gave lots of likes and favorites, you're obviously upping your chances more and more and more than people who only do it a little bit. This way I get a little something back. It helps me through YouTube, and you guys have that other opportunity there. But yeah, I admit it, it's not a very interesting competition. All right, let's look at some of the results before we talk about some more of what's going on next week. Let's have a look at the art stuff. Now, I am very sad to say I did just come away from a long recording where I went through every single piece of art that I was submitted for last month's contest and talked about it. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem feasible. Not only did I end up kind of skipping through later submissions and not spending so long talking about them, even though some of them were really, good quality, it also meant it took ages for us to get into the pirates. So instead, what you will have seen rolling through the background are a variety of the submissions we got last month from a whole host of people. If you submitted something to this art competition, thank you so much. It's been thrilling to see. We had everything from music, which you'll be hearing in the background, to art that people have done based either on Shiro Tagachi or generic Guild Wars 2 stuff, and even the winning entry, which you guys can now see. This is what I chose to win. It just blew me away. Someone did take our prompt for the art competition of something to do with Shiro Tagachi. You see, when we did the last video, it was around when this Revenant Elite Specialization had been announced, and they made a sculpture, a bust of him in real life. Now, supposedly, this is going to be painted at some point as well, but, you know, it can change it. They're a little worried, so they submitted it like this. And, yeah, this is just fantastic. So this is who wins the 400 gems. But to everyone else who submitted, thank you so much. I think some of this stuff is awesome. Notably, I really shouldn't point out specific pieces, but I loved this one of Divinity's Reach, like an alternate version of Divinity's Reach. I'm super into map making. I'm super into world building. Follow a variety of different forums and places where people discuss this kind of stuff. This is just fascinating to see. This is no joke. The amount of effort it takes to create something like this is wonderful. And just the fact that even when we get south of the city, you see that it's palm trees and it's tropical like actual Crichton GW1 was. I love it. There were so many great posts, guys. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be kind of light and breezy about it. And we'll talk about what you can do for art next month very soon, because I've got a great idea for that. All right, let's move on to the pirates. Now, hopefully I can cover these in a good way for you guys. And I say that because I have almost an impossible task ahead of me. On this thread alone, after having counted up, there are at least 164 submissions. I feel kind of bad because so many, we could pick any of these submissions at random, okay? The cursed one, okay, for a Guardian Pirate. And people have put an incredible amount of effort into every single one. And to be able to cover and discuss every nuance, what's overpowered, what's weak, what's creative, what's uncreative, what doesn't fit into the game, about every little thing that everyone has said in, you know, over 200 submissions across the entire thing, not just Reddit included, is it's kind of impossible for me to do. So here's how we're going to cover the pirates. I've gathered up as many as I possibly can. Now, I'm also going to issue an apology here. We didn't give many restrictions on where things could be submitted before. So for a great deal of this month, I've had, across multiple places, Twitter, YouTube PMs, Reddit PMs, on this Reddit thread, on the YouTube video we did, where people unfortunately have been flagged for spam, which means a lot of things have been lost. Some of these submissions may indeed have fallen through the cracks. And specifically, I know a lot of you guys took a ton of pride in the pirates that you submitted and continued updating them. I had a couple of people who were updated 2 or even 3 times. And in some cases, the most updated version may not have eventually got into my hands. However, everything has hopefully been gathered together by my hand specifically into this Reddit thread by the time this video will go up for you guys, so you are more than welcome to have a look. So how can we cover these pirates? How can we talk about this? Well, I've decided to give you guys, first of all, just some basic stats. First, let's have a look at the distribution of pirates across professions. Which class seemed most suited then to pirates, according to you guys, the community? Which class seemed least suited to pirates? These numbers may not come as a surprise to you guys. Guardians clocked in at the least amount of pirates with only 9 pirates available. That's pretty interesting to me. I would have suspected Revenants maybe to have been even lower. At the end of the day, we haven't even played Revenants. When this contest began, Revenants, you know, core stuff, their underwater capabilities, all of that wasn't even announced. So to think that there was a lot of hype, a lot of speculation, and ability for people to get creative with that class to make their own elite specialization already was really interesting to me. But actually, Revenants came in with 16 submissions, one of the higher numbers of all. The second lowest turned out to be a tie between elementalists and engineers. Engineers I found interesting because I did think it'd be quite easy to play into with this Aether Blade idea. I think perhaps because I mentioned in the contest video that this was a decent concept. Maybe people thought they might not win if they were doing Aether Blades. We do have a couple, you know, yeah, if you guys in this competition or in future ones, you see, you know, already submitted, you know, maybe a week before someone else did an Aether Blade and then you end up doing an Aether Blade. That hasn't affected my opinion or your chance to win. I've tried to base purely off of the information within the specialization itself, and also to try and view them in a vacuum. See, what else has also been interesting, and if we look at the class with the most pirates, that being the Thief, this is Mesmer, sorry, that being the Thief clocked in with 37 entries. Almost 40 entries for the Thief, quadruple the amount that we had for the Guardians, more. If you have a look at this, you know, you see a lot of names appear very frequently. For example, Swashbuckler. Lots of people made Swashbuckling Thieves. That to me doesn't mean if someone were to submit today another Thief specialization that was a Swashbuckler, I tried my very best to not be automatically bored by it because I'd read it before. If anything, that just means, you know, a Swashbuckling Thief is a really good idea because it's something that resonates with a lot of people. And, you know, that's been a really interesting balance for me. Something that originally I really liked were, you know, a lot of the heavy armors, they ended up having a lot of marauding pirates. Specifically, there's this art here. This art appeared in so many of the elite specializations here. People probably Googling Marauder or something. And that's cool art. That works really well for, you know, concept art for an elite pirate specialization in Guild Wars 2. And it was hard, you know, after like the 9th time I see this image, I have to keep that fresh perspective that it's not old and boring. This doesn't automatically mean it's a bad spec because they've used this. It means, you know, it could be something quite on point. So that was a really interesting balance for me to strike. And yes, the most popular ones were Thieves. I tried to also cleanse myself of bias for what I play myself in the game. However, I will say that a lot of necromancers had very cool ideas, and necromancers were probably the second most popular with 24 elite specializations. I wonder whether this is born out of the fact that with necromancers we have a class and a lot of fans of a class that is deficient somehow. You know, a lot of people consider necromancer to be in a bad place and they want a lot more for it, so they've got all this creative venting that they do. Or maybe it's just because in the video I showed like Calypso and stuff from Pirates of the Caribbean, and people are thinking about, you know, the undead tie. You know, undead pirates is a very common theme we see a lot of. There's even some pretty nice pun names you can do, like the Necro. I think I had like 3, maybe 4 different submissions, all basically playing on this this kind of pun that you can do here. When talking about elementalists, of course, near and dear to my heart, and I found myself very easy to scrutinize these pirates. One thing I will say, just at a very superficial level, people had some really fascinating ideas for elementalists when it just comes to the concept behind it and like its name. You know, even here you can see, like, you've got the Saltwater, Riptide, Witchman, Typhoon, Oracle, the Rage Flame, the Whoosher was a funny one, and, you know, the Reef Finder. These were all really interesting ideas because nothing about elementalists on its own screams pirate, and then people kind of turn to these very creative outlets to do it. So what I'm going to do, guys, is instead of picking amongst my many favorites, this has been so difficult, what we're going to do is take a random submission from a few of the classes. So let's first of all have a look at the Mesmers. Just some generic information about Mesmers. I was surprised to see how many people gave like shout style stuff to Mesmers. Deceptions was a really obvious utility skill type that people took from Thieves. But so at random, here we've got the Filibuster Mesmer. This actually used my template. That's another thing as well. We have like 4 different templates that people were submitting from pirates now. Some people were throwing their own templates down in the end and really showing some incredible stuff. Here we got the Filibuster. This is a pistol main hand Mesmer pirate. This was a really obvious thing that you can do. I see a lot as well on the casters of people taking the underwater weapons and putting them onto land. You see that an awful lot like tridents. So the core mechanic for the Filibuster here is that they are daring, self-centered loners who have realized the booty does not have to be shared when you are a fleet of one. Filibusters rely on singling out and pressuring opponents until a fatal mistake is made. So this elite specialization was getting stances available. I really can't go into too much detail on these. I just cut a huge chunk of the video out. One thing I do find quite interesting was the idea of an auto attack here, that as you auto attack, the conditions on the foe that you're auto attacking are copied to foes around them, a lot like we've seen some of this Reaper and Berserker technology being used, which I really quite like. And another thing to point out, I really like the design of the miners here. A lot of people went completely over the top with the miners, in my opinion. Like, usually I'd find a specialization was, in my opinion, super balanced, pretty decent, but you'd get to the miners and people would get really, oh, this could be a great passive thing to always have on us. But then, you know, because of how strong it would be, I think they're often things you'd never see in the game. Illusory Parrot. When entering combat, an illusory parrot perches on your shoulder. Not quite sure how the animation would work here, but the parrot uses the same #1 attack chain as your currently held weapon with the same efficiency of a clone, but doesn't count as one. So this would actually be very low damage, but it helps you trigger those like extra effects. And of course, a problem here with this passive, by the way, is the first passive is usually it does nothing on elite specializations. A lot of people miss the trick there. I always found myself smiling when I found a pirate that included this little detail that the first miner really doesn't do anything. But this one, the second one, is Gangway. When using a shatter skill, clones and illusions will leap to their target instead of running, which would kind of allow you to have these ultra range shatters going on like this. This is incredibly powerful. But then the Grandmaster Miner I thought was really quite well done. Shark Bait, ignore and send back a damaging condition that would be applied to you on a 10-second cooldown. That cooldown seems really fitting. We already see a lot of this in the game. You know, that first strike when you hit an engineer who's alchemy, it's immune and then it's converted. This actually like sends it back straight away. Actually very necromancer-y as a trait, but yeah. Those are the Mesmers. An extreme example of a Mesmer, I shouldn't spend so long, is the Mutineer. Didn't really include much information on this Mutineer, but the idea is literally you make people attack one another, which is crazy, and I don't think we'll ever see in Guild Wars 2, but a funny concept and very Mesmer-y at its heart. So let's move on to the Thieves. So, of course, this was the largest category. Had a whole ton of swashbucklers. I think that was probably the most popular name that we saw here as well. But bandits, brigands, Smugglers, these are, and Corsairs specifically, these all appeared a lot. So to choose one at random here, this pains me to do it this way, but I don't know how else we can cover them in any reasonable amount of time. But here, as you guys can see, we've got the Seafarer, a new type of template. Actually, a lot of you guys went with different templates, and in a lot of cases, I think they worked really, really well for submissions. So this describes the sea is a harsh mistress, and the Seafarer knows it very well, having traveled all over the world, gathering riches and losing them all, chasing legends and discovering the horrors hidden into unknown territories. After years of thievery and swashbuckling, the Seafarer is to become a skilled adventurer and is now able to make the most of what he's seen and learned. There was an interesting thing as well with these submissions of how kind of evil did you take the spec. Some people were just like, yeah, these are full-on pirates that are still killing and pillaging and destroying settlements. And some people went with other ideas where they were kind of puritanical, but not necessarily bad guys. So the core mechanics here, the new profession mechanic for the Seafarer elite specialization is called Pillage. Each of your weapon attacks gives you a stack of booty that expires after 3 seconds unless a new stack is applied, in which case the expiration countdown is reset by using your new F3. You consume every stack of booty, dealing damage and applying conditions to a target and granting you boons depending on the number of stacks. This pillage idea appeared in a lot of Thief elite specializations. Now, not to discredit the one we're currently reading, one way I loved to see pillage used though was your steel became pillage instead, and you kind of got different abilities coming out of that. That was a fairly common thing we saw. To scroll down a little bit here, let's have a look at the traits. Traits were always really easy to breathe. Very interesting idea on this one here. Sea Breeze, regeneration will scale with power instead of healing power. I think that's kind of an interesting way to kind of have a bit of a sustainy thief. To look at the Grandmasters, increase damage to enemies with low health. So you could actually double up. This was another thing a lot of people didn't consider with their elite specializations, was that you still have 2 core specializations. So a lot of people weren't considering like combos between their elite one and then all the core specializations that came too. So, you know, you could combine this with Executioner that already exists on the Thief. Siren's Blessing, gain regeneration, also grants quickness. And this would be crazy to combo with, say, like any source of regeneration that's already in the game, of which there are just tons of them. Obviously, we'd need an internal cooldown to boot, but I would just assume that it's balanced because it was missing. And then Pieces of 8. Every stack of booty grants you 1% reduced damage. So kind of you got your tanky idea. You kind of got, I suppose this is regen, so it's almost tankiness. But then, you know, you've got your quick damage idea here, and then you've got, you know, as well, even more flat damage on this one, as you can choose here. So yeah, Thieves were a huge category. I couldn't even begin to talk about all of them. We've already been going on for so long. How do we deal with this? All right, let's look at the Revenants. Revenants were one of my favorite categories to look at because each one was obviously tied to an existing character in lore. And as you can see, people went with some really cool ideas. I mentioned in the comments for the previous video that we did the idea of having Lady Glaive, a famous Corsair from the lore of the game. Other people took some other ideas. You know, you've got Margaret the Sly. Some people opted not even to go for a previous legend and just went with a totally different idea, like the idea of the Brewer. Margaret the Sly, in case you guys weren't aware, is actually a Guild Wars 1 hero that we spent a lot of time with and was one of these cool characters from Nightfall. To grab a random one, I'm so sorry, but we're going to have to start going quicker now. We've got another of the new templates being used. This is the Mist Reaver. Revenant specializes Mist Reavers can choose to channel the legend of the dreaded Corsair leader Lady Glaive, who ruled over the Elonian shores 3 centuries ago. By choosing this path, Mist Reavers can utilize Corsair-themed skills for enemy control and team support, call for help from ghostly allies, and equip pistols to punish foes from afar. So you can have a pistol Revenant. This here is interesting because it's not just one weapon technically, it's 2. Or, I don't know, do we think about the elite specializations as equipping into slots, or do we think about them as weapons themselves? Has some really nice skill effects, obviously recolors of other things. This is actually the Thief skill 3 on the main hand. We see over here Mutinous Tides call for a tidal wave that chills and taunts foes in an area. Taunt was something a lot of people use. I've actually noticed that we as a community have put a lot more taunt into elite specializations than ArenaNet have generally put taunt into the game. I guess it's something they're scared of using too much of. And then to come down to the traits, let's look at a master trait this time, shall we? The minor is persistent wounds. Outgoing condition duration is increased if you're under the effects of a boon. Really good standard minor, I can totally see happening. And agonizing limp. This one I love. Cripple deals damage to moving foes. And more of these things that make non-damaging conditions damaging conditions. Or there's a really bizarre idea. I think I saw like one submission that had this as an idea, and I didn't quite agree with it. But the idea of having conditions that do damage, like burning, and it no longer does damage, but it does something else instead. It becomes, you know, one of these forms of like a soft CC. That's also an interesting idea, and you can kind of make things topsy-turvy. But Agonizing Limp, very well named, and generally a cool specialization. Moving on to the Rangers, this was kind of one of those middling professions. There weren't an incredible amount of Rangers that were submitted, which is interesting to me because I would have thought Rangers would have a lot, especially considering the whole pirate bird thing or, you know, pet monkey thing. And Rangers are, you know, and plus their medium armor. I could totally imagine a pirate on a ship. But so that's not to say we didn't have a lot. We even had some very interesting ideas. This one particularly stands out for me. This is the Treasure Hunter. Again, this is another double pistol elite specialization. Treasure Hunters care not for the riches, but for the adventures themselves as well. Their focus lies in use of skills which help them on their adventures. These include high mobility skills and traits. For that reason, the weapons best suited to them are pistols, daggers, and warhorns. So this is an entirely new type of utility skill. These are wits, healing herbs, gold rush, explosive trap, distilled ooze tonic, poisonous plant bomb, and we have a fun idea down here in the traits too that this is an elite specialization that specifically interacts with something that already exists on the class. A lot of people got very fixated on, okay, we're adding new skills and new stuff, and all the traits and everything has to interact with the new stuff specifically, while here we've got, you know, casting Call of the Wild, an existing skill, makes you completely resistant to stuns, slows, and immobilizing effects for 6 seconds. Using Warhorn skills heals you and grants regeneration. Completely overpowered, in my opinion, but, you know, it's an interesting idea. And specifically, to move on to the Necromancers, this is something quite important for Necros in particular because of the way their shroud is set up. So there was an interesting discussion actually, originally began by Rim1469, who said, just a reminder to some creators about Necromancer design. And this was something that was going completely over my head for a while. Since the competition is restricted to more implementable ideas, you should realize that with the design of shrouds, there are a lot of restrictions. So, for example, your elite specializations kind of has to have a shroud. Otherwise, you can take another specialization that's supposed to augment shroud, and it doesn't quite work. There's too much associated with it. Also, they mentioned that Shroud 1 can't really be super fast attacks, like a quarter of a second, because that skill can be traded with Doomfire, which would mean insanely fast, high burning stacks. It also can't necessarily be traded with vulnerability. It's interesting to me that Necromancers people feel are very underpowered. And you can believe that or not, and you can talk about their balance or not. I actually think in PvP specifically, which is where the devs balance from, mostly they're actually in a reasonable spot right now. Not at the high end, but we do see a lot of Necromancers being played, and we do see that they have capabilities right now. I think the true thing that's going to cripple Necromancers going forward in Guild Wars 2, the main argument about them that is we're only seeing the early signs of it, is their elite specializations have to be very restricted, unless a lot of traits change for Necromancer. Like, you're just going to see alternate versions of Shroud with similar abilities. Like, one of those Shroud abilities is going to be generating Life Force. The skill 2, to keep going, has to be compatible with Path of Corruption, which means it's got to do damage and it's got to recognize a hit so that it can actually corrupt boons. Transfusion, this trait that sucks bodies in next to you and even reses downstate characters, that means that your skill 4 is often going to tick lots and lots of times. So there's a lot of restrictive design for the Necromancers. I tried not to be too harsh when I was judging these ones as they came in, but a lot of fun ideas. The Voodoo Priest, I think, was actually the earliest entry I had in the entire competition. And here you can see Calypso here from Pirates of the Caribbean. And it was, even with this first one, I realized just how much information and love would be going into these things, even though it wasn't a completely finished elite specialization. But this was the idea of giving cantrips. Some really overpowered stuff on this one as well. The idea that you could just create a ring around you that was like a fear wall, except it would never go away, I think was in this specific one on the torch. Very crazy stuff. Last of all, and very quickly, let's talk a little about the engineer elite specializations. So this isn't the only place, though I mentioned it earlier, this isn't the only place we saw Aether Blades be made, and the section wasn't too full compared to some of the other classes we had, but in general I think people did quite well. One of the more recent ones that we had here was just simply called the Sky Pirates, as you can see here. They got physical skills as the utilities. The description is, uses a rocket pack and belt for mobility, but as a result doesn't have room to hold a lot of his usual engineer gear. This leads these mobile menaces to get up close and personal and use a combination of their wits, nearby junk, and some downright dirt dirty tricks to get the upper hand in a fight. The Rocket Pack off kit replaces your tool belt 1 to 5, and when equipped, the Rocket Pack replaces your utility skills as well. So Engineer is one of these classes that already has a bunch of abilities and mechanics, and I really think that these ones, I mean, you could just tell already, this random example I've picked is not a crazy outliner. A lot of the Engineer ones had an incredible amount of detail on them. Also, one of my favorite names for what it's worth, which is the Voyager spec. If a name really counts for too much, I think that's a really, really cool name. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop there for the Pirates section, guys. I am so sorry if your specialization never got to talking about. There are some that really deserve an awful lot of discussion purely on them. People have put a lot of thought in, and all I've really been able to do here is talk in general terms about the submissions and the classes and, you know, highlight a couple of random things. If you're watching this, even if you didn't submit something, I seriously recommend you guys check out this thread. The link is in the description, and have a chat with people. That's the one thing I feel like this contest was lacking a little, because yeah, I can showcase some stuff on these videos, but they have a time limit, let's be honest, and I feel like people aren't getting the attention they deserve. So if you're excited about what could potentially come up for your class with, you know, their Generation 2 Elite Specialization, or even their first one if you're a medium armor fan, if you want to have a talk about Engineer, if you want to talk about Necro and have a look at how people have tackled that kind of design, check out the thread. I am very active in it myself. You can almost guarantee you'll be getting responses from me here and there, and so yeah. So the sadness of the fact we can't look at every single one aside, let's have a look at the winner. Now let's move on. The winner has been really hard for me to pick here, because there have been so many good ones for so many reasons in so many ways. You know, I've seen a lot of competitions and stuff being run throughout my life, you know, on TV, on other friggin' YouTube channels, and people always come out with that comment, oh, it's so hard to pick a winner. It friggin' is, man. It is, and I feel bad showing a winner when I know that there are some of you out there watching right now who did friggin' amazing stuff when you're going to feel let down. So the way I eventually decided this, and this is not how I will do it in future months, because I do not want to punish people who take their time making an elite specialization, but I've picked the very first one to truly impress me, while also having consideration for the winner, for it to be one that is kind of representative of many of the submissions. So it's not like some completely crazy wild thing that I personally am in love with, but it's actually something I think I could really see happening, and a lot of people are kind of buzzing around this general idea. I think it embodies a elite specialization for a pirate, mechanics aside, most well. It in fact was one of the Thief ones. It in fact was a very common name, but also went into a lot of detail. And so the one I've chosen is the Thief Elite Specialization, the Marauder. And it didn't go into as crazy detail as some of you other guys. Someone even did like an entire wiki page on one of theirs. But so to run through it, looking to escape the banality of society, Marauders adopted living on the fringe as a way of life. Sailing the high seas and exploring the unknown, Marauders rely on their survival skills and unparalleled marksmanship to brave the wilds. Marauders gain the use of rifles. Yeah, I think everything that we read in this seems like it could have come from ArenaNet. Now, I'm not saying everything's perfectly balanced, but here, look at the kind of detail you can go into. Marauders replace the F1 steel ability of the Thief with Flintlock. While steel makes a Thief shadow step to a target, the Marauder's Flintlock will actually make them him or her shadow step away from a target. The range of Flintlock is 600, and the shadow step away is 1200 range from the target, not your position. So this isn't a 1200 range blink back, but if you're right next to them, then you'll move. It's kind of like just a reverse steel in. I guess this could work in some weird places within the game's mechanics, but we've seen ideas like this before. It also makes me think of some of the original assassin skills from the first game. After firing, the F2 ability then becomes Reload. This ability has a 3.5 second activation time, but instantly takes Flintlock off cooldown if you successfully use it. So it's got this cool idea. Again, we've got a Thief with a rifle, something that I think a lot of thieves like the idea of, or has appeared a lot, especially in this pirate specialization. And actually, considering thieves are probably going to be in staves for the actual elite specialization, it's something that was really fun to be able to speculate about. And yeah, it gives you this idea that you're actually firing and reloading that isn't something Guild Wars 2's tapped into too much before. Moving on, we've got the rifle weapon skills, and again, you can go with this idea of just like doing the big snipe, but there's a lot more to consider as well. It's a two-handed weapon, so you've got the auto, and this is just precise shot, 1.25 second activation time, but does more damage than typical auto attacks, as you'd expect from a rifle. It's a projectile finisher. Really, I think this should say 20%. But then this is what really starts to get to me. Think about it. On a Thief, a lot of people miss this. You're going to have a stealth attack. Your auto attack will change when you're in stealth, so it becomes ambush. which is stun your foe for a second with that strike, and apply 4 stacks of confusion for 5 seconds if instead you attack from behind or the side. Again, I think the balance isn't totally on here, because a stun on an auto attack for a second is just very, very powerful. I think like a quarter of a second daze is far more appropriate, especially considering that if you go from behind or the side, you know, a little bit of confusion if you're not on a Condi build is far worse than, you know, the direct strike with the stun. But maybe that positional play is what's cool about the skill. You got shrapnel shot, 2 seconds of cripple to foes at high range, 3 stacks of bleeding to foes at close range. Then we have to factor in initiative costs. What you got to consider, guys, is Thief is what we saw the most pirates of, and is actually one of the more difficult things to talk about as well, to be able to speculate on how much initiative various things would go into. So I think I have quite a lot of respect for the people who eventually went into that kind of detail. Duck and Weave, release a cloud of black powder at your location, creating a smoke field, blinding foes around you, and evade backwards, granting super speed. This is very much about getting away. It's not gap closing, it's getting away. So even details on this smoke field itself was impressing me. 2 seconds of blind and smoke field. To move on a little bit more, here we've got the kind of sniper ideas, all right? So you've got take aim. Almost a second to be able to do this. It will make your next attack unblockable, and it gives you some might, and this is obviously to just build into the skill 5 Eagle Eye. Root yourself in place to charge a powerful shot, thinking along the lines of kill shot here, can be charged for up to 10 seconds. So this is one of those cool ideas that they had in the engine a long time ago, but they haven't touched for a while. And this is, the longer you hold the button down, the more potent the effect. There are tons of abilities in Guild Wars 2 that could react like this. A mechanic like this, for example, for the Elementalist on Churning Earth would make that a lot more playable. But so if you took aim and then you charged for the full 10 seconds just before your might's about to run out, and then you unload, for every second the ability is charged, it does 3% more damage. So that's well tuned, you know, like the full 10-second one-up, that's a long time, but that's a 30% damage modifier. Considering the class is already on, that's a lot of damage modifiers you can get, and you could get a really good snipe coming off, but that's a huge price to pay, you know, 10 seconds to be able to actually do that. And then with the initiative, you can do it again. You can Eagle Eye again straight away, as long as you've got that initiative built up, which you probably do because you've been charging it for so long. So to look at traits, Pistolier changes the F1 and F2 slots of Flintlock and Reload. Got the first minor bang on point, doesn't actually do anything, just describes a change in your profession. Survival Instinct, regeneration is 50% more effective, including applications to you from allies. Honed Reflexes, I'm not sure how fitting into the theme this is, but then we got Honed Reflexes, increases quickness, swiftness, and super speed duration by 25%. So some interesting play there, specifically with giving yourself quickness and then playing around, you know, this iconic thing that the rifle's offering with the Take Aim Eagle Eye. Onto Adept traits, 5% more damage when not moving. Obviously, again, buffs the rifle. All ranged weapon skills apply a little bit of bleeding, allowing you to go into this Condi playstyle. And Thick Skin, convert incoming conditions to regeneration. You've got your tanky playstyle on the bottom. Again, the whole thing is themed very well. It's about putting big gaps between you and your opponent using the Flintlock, and then, you know, being able to snipe from your range there. You've got, and this is, you know, a true high damage ranged thief, which doesn't really exist. Onto the master traits. Power based on your ferocity, 10% conversion rate. Fumbling strikes blinds you, apply to damage if a foe misses. This, again, I could imagine very much on a Mesmer, but I wouldn't be upset to see this on a Thief, a class that has so much blind capability. And again, it's scaling a bit of damage, condition damage specifically, onto conditions that don't currently see it. And I love this kind of stuff. Indomitable Will, take 10% less damage while under the effects of regeneration, combos with your minor. You've got kind of the regeneration theme going on here. And then Grandmasters, last of all, Devastating Shot. Eagle Eye does 10% more damage if it's charged for at least 4 seconds. So it's a modifier on a specific skill under specific circumstances. I think damage modifiers are fine as long as they are something you specifically have to play into. I don't necessarily like the ones that are just like, oh, do more damage at high health or do more damage at low health, when it's specifically the way you play affects the damage modifier. I think that's a lot more fun, if that makes sense. Range Master, the effects of all projectile-based combos are doubled. And because all projectile-based combo finishers are really boring in the game, this could be something kind of fun and change the way you play in a lot of environments. And then Fast Hands, reduces activation time of reload by 1 second. Obviously, this already is a warrior trait, so it would have to go with a rename. But, you know, if this is a person that plays a lot of Thief, I can forgive it. And just reduce the activation time of reload by 1 second, and it gives you a little bit of quickness whenever you use it. So I think it's a really well-rounded elite specialization. I think it shows understanding the game. It goes into a lot of detail, and it was pretty simple. One of the first ones that caught my eye, and for those reasons, it's the winner. So I really hope you guys liked that. Congratulations to the winning entry. My reasons for picking the next winner will not necessarily be the same. Again, I did mention this a lot when we started this competition. Going into crazy amounts of detail isn't necessarily what I'm looking for. Like, one thing I will say to the detriment of this winner is it's not got any of the crazy creative ideas we see on some of these other submissions. Sometimes people go so crazy, I think it could never end up in engine. But as I say, I think this really is a well-rounded way of doing a thief with a rifle, and also a really well-rounded way of making and naming a pirate. So yeah. Alright, so with that said, let's discuss what we're going to be doing for our last two competitions over this month. So I've already described two to you guys. There's the ReShade competition, the first link in the description. There is the liking and favoriting the boring one. You're going to be able to make another elite specialization for this month. Now, because we've kind of proven that people love making these things, I had so many comments from people not just saying, hey, here's my submission, but also saying, hey, this was really, really fun. You know, this was something I didn't expect to enjoy this much. This has given me newfound respect for the devs. A lot of people actually said that, and I wonder whether when ArenaNet reveal their elite specs now, they kind of have a slightly different eye for things. So since we've proven lots of people will want to do it, and it was a complete mess gathering them all together, we're just going to start by having you guys submit so I don't have to do any micromanagement and really annoying copy pasting for hours and hours and hours on end. There will be a link in the description. Find the post that is your class and then submit your elite spec as a reply. So what are the elite specs? What's the theme this time? Any medium armor elite specialization. Any medium one at all. So we haven't heard any of these from ArenaNet just yet. Is there a secret reason for that? Probably not. It's just the way it ended up working out. But that's, of course, what we're all going to be looking at. And as this month rolls out, we're going to be getting the Thief one, we're going to be getting the Engineer one, and we're going to be getting the Ranger one. And this should keep your creative juices flowing. Maybe you're a Ranger player listening to me right now, and you end up hating what they reveal as the Druid, and you may like to submit your own in this comp. So I'll be very interested to see what kind of stuff people come up with there. It can be any weapon like a totally new weapon. It could be an underwater weapon on land, any type of utility skill, whatever you want to go for, just as long as it's a medium armor elite specialization. Get your hunters in, get your alchemists in, get your ninjas in. It's funny to me that we just did pirates, and ninjas are also a very good thing that thieves could end up becoming. And let me be clear, post your specs as a response in that link in the description. Don't do it here on YouTube. YouTube will see those links and flag your comments as spam, and then I won't get to see them. That's where you probably fell through the cracks on this month. So we're going to be doing it specifically over there. It's so much less effort on my part. Copy and pasting all day isn't necessarily my idea of fun, and that way we get to have it all together right in a place where we can talk about it at the same time. And last of all, guys, the final competition, once again, is going to be something to do with art. Any fan art you like, and the prompt for next month's art-based one is give me something related to the end of Heart of Thorns. So everyone has their ideas of where the story is going to go. Is it going to go to Ascalon and the Char? Are we going to be going to the Crystal Desert? Is it going to end with Morgemoth dead? Where is the story at the end of Heart of Thorns? That's your prompt. So you can do some art, perhaps, of Morgemoth's body. You can do some art showing, a fleet of Canthan ships on the horizon to suggest, oh, these are the ships coming from Cantha. You could write a short story depicting the death of Drahern, or anything along those lines. Something about the end of Heart of Thorns. And you can think about any of these ideas. Are the Massart going to be there? Are we going to be hanging around with Glint's baby? Is she going to be there in the background? Is it going to be some epic fight between those two? Let your creativity run wild, or if you don't like the prompt at all, anything else. And 400 gems will go to a winner of that one as well. So there you go, guys. That's the competition video. The format for this may have to change next week. Let me know what you think about it. But cheers. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Have a great evening, guys, and enjoy your gems.
Do what you want, 'cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate.